These are the minor prophets, not because they have less of a message than any other prophet who is inspired of God, but it is the fact that their scrolls are shorter than the major prophets. But this man Micah preached about the same time Isaiah did. But you need in your mind's eye to put Isaiah in the city. The court prophet. His father, in fact, Amos, Isaiah's father, had some kind of relationship to the four kings and their reigns during which Isaiah preached from about 740 BC to 690 BC. Micah started a little later than Isaiah did, but he's preaching to the same two groups, the northern kingdom, Israel, and the southern kingdom, Judah. You remember that kingdom split after the reign of Solomon over taxes and the heavy burden that Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, put on those people. And they chose Jeroboam in the north. Samaria became their capital. Jerusalem in the south, the capital of Judah and Benjamin, the two tribes that made up the southern kingdom. But at the time Micah and Isaiah are preaching, the kingdoms of Israel and Judah are apostate. And they will be told by both prophets that even if they were to repent, they are still going into captivity. Their sins were so terrible that they had to suffer the consequences of their idolatry and of their trying to form foreign alliances rather than turning to God for their protection. On occasion, Judah would try to make an alliance with Egypt. King Hezekiah tried to make an alliance with an Assyrian king named Tiglath-Pileser. You know him in the Old Testament as P-U-L, Pul. And all of those kinds of things were blasphemous to God because they would not turn to him. In fact, in the time of Isaiah, Micah, and Jeremiah, they actually hired false prophets who worked for money to tell them, your captivity will only be 2 years. And so the false prophets cried, peace, peace, when there was no peace. Micah, in the first 5 chapters of this book, will talk to both the north and the south about their sins and why it is that they were being punished. Micah's name means, is there anyone like God? Micah, is there anyone like Job? No. Isn't that an interesting name for a prophet? Do you know anyone that's like God? We don't put Micah in the city with Isaiah. We put him out in the lowlands of Palestine. He's a country prophet. I told Brother Reynolds today when he popped his head in my class and asked me if I were ready to teach tonight. And I said, what's that about? Teased him. Tried to make him think I wasn't coming. But I said, he's a country prophet like you, Mark. You know, our preacher had a farm up there in Indiana. But you're looking at a country boy, not you, Keith. Yes, I was reared on a farm. Goats, pigs, things like that. I know all about that, Brother Sparks. I'm a farm boy. Well, so is Micah. And I have another farm boy in my mind when I think about that. Old Amos was a country boy, a pruner of trees. Well, don't put down a country boy. When God uses him, he becomes something more than that. And here's Micah preaching to Samaria and to Jerusalem, where idolatry is being practiced over and over again. And I have his dates there for you. He lived in Morsheth Gath, 24 miles south of Jerusalem, southwest of Jerusalem. If I had Brother Clark's map up here, I could show you that. Brother Clark's back there. You didn't bring your map with you tonight, but I don't have that. I'm so old-fashioned, I still don't know what an overhead is. So I have to work from memory here. Kings in Micah's time, that should be Jotham, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Hezekiah is an interesting study. You get a chance, read the chapters 36 through 39 of Isaiah, and then read 2 Kings from about chapter 16. Hezekiah is a strange person. He got sick one day, I mean really sick, and a city king named Merodach-Baladan down in Babylon, who had been defeated once by Assyria, and then revolted and got back on the throne, heard about Hezekiah's sickness. What's this got to do with anything? Just a minute, I'll get there. He heard about Hezekiah's sickness, and he sent delegates to him, or messengers. And Hezekiah was so enthralled that this city king was paying attention to him. He went to the temple and showed them the gold in the temple. And he showed them the gold in his palace. And Isaiah said to Hezekiah, Hezekiah, what have they seen in thine house? What did you show them? And the Babylonians never forgot about that gold. And when they were able to defeat the Assyrians, they came after that gold in the temple and in the palace. And they got it. And they burned down the temple and destroyed the city. But in Micah's time, Assyria is in control. She's the power now. Capital, Nineveh. Very cruel people, these Assyrians. But in 722 BC, make a note, Sargon II, an Assyrian king, will destroy Samaria, and the northern tribes will be in captivity. Why? Let's look at chapter 1 for a minute. He tells us in verse 1, the kings under whom he reigned. But notice verse 2. He addresses this message to everyone. Think with me about something. What business did these Jewish prophets have preaching to the nations? I thought the Old Testament was a Jewish book. For God so loved the what? World. God never forgot the nations. They were all under him. Did you not study last week that Jonah went to Nineveh, the Assyrians? I think the Jews probably believe this is a Jewish book. And they were really upset when the Christ came to save all the nations. And when you study the book of Romans, you'll find their complaint. Now listen, Paul, how could God use us and bring the Messiah and then say we're lost? Why, after all, we're his people. We still have people in Washington who think the Jews are God's people. I'll tell you who the God's people are. They're sitting here tonight. We are the Israel of God. And there are no more God's people than anybody who's lost today. They claim to be, but they're not. And so here's Micah, not only talking to the Jews in the northern tribes, the Jews in the southern tribes. He said, listen, everybody. And then watch what he does. Look at verse 2. Hearken, O earth, and all that there is in it. When a prophet, brothers and sisters, takes an insensate object like the earth, or the sun, or the moon, or the stars, as a witness, he's telling us just how bad things are with people. And here are a people who are so sinful, there isn't any way for them to overcome the captivity that's coming. They're going into captivity. You know, folks, sometimes when we're through with sin, it isn't through with us. And we need to be aware that sometimes there's a consequence, even though we may have repented. The consequence of certain kinds of habits. You may quit them, but they may still hang around with the disease that they caused. God is able to deliver people to the third and fourth generation, the consequences of a father's sins. So when I sin, I don't just affect me. I may affect everyone around me. And God said, or Micah said from God, let me call earth to a witness here for a minute. You people are really bad. What's wrong with you? You're so bad that the Lord is coming out of his place. He will come down in the form of the Assyrian army, which will take Samaria and surround Jerusalem. And the history of that surrounding of Jerusalem is told us by Isaiah. Micah is not concerned about that right now. But Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, got all the way to the gate of Jerusalem. And he even bragged on one of his stela, I have Hezekiah shut up like a bird in a cage. And God said, that's not going to happen. And God's angel killed 186,000 Assyrians in one night. And as Brother Cage used to say, Sennacherib went home with his tail between his legs and his son killed him. What a history. The Assyrians are such a cruel people. Yet God used them against his own wicked people. That is an amazing fact. When you study Habakkuk Listen to him ask God about that. God, how can you do this? Here's Micah now telling Samaria, God's going to come down in vengeance. The mountains will shake. This is not literal. This is all figurative. Why? Look at verse 5. For the transgression of Jacob, that's the northern tribe, is all this. You're to blame, Jacob. It's your fault. You people in Samaria, you become idolatrous. The transgression of Jacob, is it not your own capital? Isn't that where you're practicing idolatry? Right there. What about Jerusalem? Yeah, the south, same way. They're practicing it too. Judah, you've got the same problem Samaria's got. And as you read through these first 5 chapters, over and over and over again, Micah has to deal with all of this sin. You look at this thought here in verse 7. And all the graven images thereof, when that Assyrian army comes, shall be beaten to pieces. Everybody you hired will be burned with fire. Everything you bought to surround them will be burned with fire. Put the word luxury there. These people had all kinds of money to spend on idolatry, but not any to give to God. And all the idols thereof will I lay desolate, for she gathered it of the hire of an harlot. You prostituted yourself before the idols, and I will destroy them, God says. And you'll be like the hire of an harlot, useless. Micah hears this. Look what he says. Brother Wickhester, I have an idea for a book, but I don't have the expertise to write it. You might. The pathos of the prophets. When we read these prophets, we often get a glimpse into how they felt about what they had to say. And Isaiah, in 2 instances when he's talking to the nations, one of which was Moab, starts to bewail the fact that God's going to punish them. These men are so compassionate that when he hears what the message is, he said, I will wail and howl. I don't like this, but I have to tell my people what the problem is. What's the problem, Micah? Samaria is going to be overthrown. Jerusalem will be surrounded. Why? The practice of idolatry. And look at verse 9 now. Now I said that there isn't any way for them not to go into captivity. It will happen. Why? Her wound is incurable. I can't fix this. They're going to have to, God says, I can't fix this. They're going to have to go into captivity. That is the consequence of their sin. You don't have to tell the Philistines. They'll already be conquered. Verse 10. See, the Assyrians are coming from the north, right down through Philistia, on into Palestine. They're going to take Samaria. So you don't have to tell Gath or Alfrock. They're just going to see it happen to them. Saphir will be gone. Zidon will be gone. Beth Ezel will be gone. Moros waited for good, but evil came. All of that is talking about the attacking of the Assyrians from the north. What's the problem? I wonder why these folks went to the temple. Isaiah looked at them and and God said through Isaiah, tell those folks not to come around here with their offers. I don't want them in the new moons, monthly. I don't want them in the Sabbaths, weekly. I don't want them in their solemn assembly, atonement day once a year. And I don't want them in their annual feast. Don't bring those offerings. They had made it formalistic. Oh, they brought the sheep, they brought the goat, but they didn't bring themselves. And they had turned religion into formalism. Well, I need to go down to the temple. Before you go to sleep tonight, read the 58th chapter of Isaiah. And listen to Isaiah being told, you go tell my people what their problem is. They come down here to the temple with their Sabbath go-to-meeting clothes on. They're all dressed up, and they're asking questions even as if they were a people that love me. they don't. They're sitting there thinking about their jobs and the money they could make, and all the time they're wasting down here at the temple. So religion to them was just going through the motions. Look at chapter 3 of Micah with me. I'm going to read verses 1 through 4 here. Here is a strange thought. You know, for a Christian, if we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins. Listen to God tell Micah what to tell these Jews. And I said, Hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, ye leaders of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know justice? Isn't that your job? You leaders, aren't you supposed to be just? I wonder if we could ask that question today. Who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off them and their flesh from off their bones. You people use anybody you can to get ahead. Is that the way leaders are supposed to be? Taking bribes and rewards and making money? Could you tell me how a community organizer can come out of 8 years at the White House and be a billionaire? Who also eat the flesh of my people and flay their skin from off them. Notice what he's describing. Greedy, greedy leaders. Watch verse 4. Then shall they cry unto the Lord, but He will not hear them. What's God going to do? Look at verse 12 of chapter 3. Jerusalem will be plowed like a field and become nothing more than heaps, piles of nothing. When Nehemiah came back from the Babylonian captivity, he went around that city on a donkey, and the stones were piled so high around the city where they'd been destroyed that he had trouble getting through there, you remember. God said there'll just be heaps there, nothing. What happened? Leadership in that country, sick. Followers in that country, sick, sin sick. We go to the temple, but it's all formal. We bring our animal, but it really doesn't mean anything. You know, that animal they were to bring was supposed to be without spot or blemish. You suppose if it had a spot on this side, they just turned it over, handed it to the priest. They were greedy, evil, loved evil, hated the good. Look at Micah 3:11. Listen to these priests, or these heads of the country. The heads thereof judge for reward. Well, if you go to court and you've got enough money, you can bribe the judge. That's why he does it. I heard it said during the O.J. Simpson trial that if you have enough money in this country, you can get away with anything. I hope that's not true, but it certainly was in his case. But here's the same thing. These leaders do this for money. And Jerusalem is going to pay for that. And even the priests work for money. And the prophets divine for money. And it was all about money. It used to be said among us that if you didn't want to make money, you should preach. For some preachers, that's not true anymore. I listened to a man the other day that's got an airplane, several cars, a mansion, and nobody ever sins, according to this guy. I won't tell you his name, but his initials are Joel Osteen.
Plan and deliver.
When you're greedy, you plan to make money. You learn how to do it. You learn how to use people. And that kind of thing. Micah's mentioned a lot in the New Testament. When the Magi came looking for the Christ child, they stopped and they asked the high priest, where will he be born? And they quoted Micah 5:2, if you look at it. Bethlehem in the south, Bethlehem Ephratah. Why in the south? Why make that distinction? There's a Bethlehem in the north. But he'll be born there in Bethlehem. Micah said that almost 8 centuries before Christ came. He pinpointed exactly where the Christ child would be in Bethlehem. Micah is mentioned again at John 7, Matthew 10, and Luke 12. So this prophet is well known to Israel. Let's take a positive view now of all that negativity. Let's go to chapter 6 a moment. The first 5 chapters we read about the sins of Samaria to be taken by Assyria. We read about the sins of Judah finally be taken by Babylon in 606, 590, and 586 BC by the king Nebuchadnezzar. But in chapter 6, an interesting thing occurs. Let's imagine this is a court scene. And God says to these sinners, contend with me before the mountains, a euphemism for government or leadership. Come on in here and tell me what the problem is, God says. That's an interesting thought. Hear ye, O governments of men, the Lord's controversy. Again he draws the insensate object for the witness. And ye strong foundations of the earth. For the Lord has a debate, a controversy with his people. And he will plead with Israel. What? So God's the first on the witness stand. And he says, oh my people, what have I done to you? Why do you act this way? Was it my fault? Did I make you tired of me by taking care of you? Is that what happened? Testify against me. Tell me what the problem is. I brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Was that bad? Took you out of all that slavery. I gave you great leaders, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. What's the problem? I protected you from Balak and Balaam, who tried to destroy you through divination and offering. I wouldn't let them do it. What's the problem? Now they testify. Brother Mark talked last weekend, and Sunday morning about the proper image of God. What is God like? Here you have a nation that's going into captivity to it. It's their fault. But God pleased with them. Tell me what caused that. What's the problem? Listen to what they said. Wherewith shall I come before Jehovah? You know what the problem is, Lord? You're just too hard. Because if I bowed before you and came with you with burnt offerings, calves of a year old, you wouldn't be pleased with that. There's nothing I can do to please you, so I gave up. I quit. And I started sinning so I could please myself. You're too hard. Why, I couldn't please you with thousands of ram, 10,000 rivers of oil, and if I gave you the firstborn of for my sins, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul, that wouldn't work either. What think you, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man traveling into a far country? He called unto him his servants, and parted unto them his goods. To one he gave 5 pieces of silver, to another 2 pieces of silver, to another 1 piece of silver, each man according to his several ability. How did that Lord of the manor decide how to divide his goods? It depended on the ability of the one he gave, the 5 or the 2 or the 1. He never gave anyone there something they could not handle. That is not the way God operates. When God gives me something, he knows I can handle it. Well, the fellow with the 5 pieces of silver doubled it. The fellow with the 2 doubled it. He had the ability so to do. What did that fellow do with that 1 piece? He didn't bury his talent. He buried his master's goods. He's not talking about our talents there. He's talking about how we use what God gives us in terms of what we can use to further His kingdom. That guy buried it. Do you remember what he said to God? I knew you. You're a hard man. You plant where you've never planted. And so here's a man with the wrong concept of God, so he doesn't work for him. Here are these Jews sinning and practicing idolatry. You know what they would do? They would cut down a tree, decorate part of it. Jeremiah tells us it's not a Christmas tree, it's an idol. And he'd decorate part of it. Then he'd take the rest of it and use it for a cook fire. So he'd burn up part of his God and worship the other part. Well, that's stupid. I mean, you're on a limb with that kind of worship. Excuse me. I was barking up the wrong tree there. You're smile, Troy. That's a joke. You better word that in my classes. He's a hard man. We couldn't please God if we tried, so we'll just sin, give up. Verse 8 is the key to my understanding of God. How He treats me, what He thinks about what He tells me to do. And listen to that phrase, oh man. Anytime you see a capital O and something following it, a Jew is talking to a Jew. Romans chapter 2. Wilt thou know, oh man? Yeah. Okay, here's this Jew, Micah, telling the Jews, He hath showed thee, oh man. You folks had the scroll. Don't you remember? What does God require of me? To do the impossible. You know, I'd obey the gospel, but I don't think I could live it. You know what the Greek answer to that is? Abash. If God said you could do it, you can do it. Not that hard. God told me to quit worrying. I don't like that one. I love to worry. Well, I can do it. I can do it. He has showed thee, O man, what is good. Here it is. God requires three things of you Jews. Practice justice. That's the golden rule. What else, Micah? Love mercy. You become like God. Oh, what a great sermon Sunday morning on this subject. Mercy. And to walk humbly with God. Is that too hard? Could you please God? I put down on the sheet here a brief outline of Micah. There's a lot of justice and judgment in the first 5 chapters. Our first 3 chapters. But then he starts to talk about what all this is being done to accomplish. If God had not controlled the northern kingdom, if God had not controlled the southern kingdom, if God had not put into force His use of these armies to conquer His people, then you and I would not have a Messiah. Because the Jews are part of the promise to Abraham, that in his seed He would bless all, God would bless all the nations of the earth. Genesis 12:3. And from the time of Genesis 12:3 until Revelation, this book is about the coming and the work and the future return of the Messiah. It's all about Jesus. And if the Palestinians are rebellious, there's no place to bring the promise to Abraham. It has to be in Palestine. Wait a minute, God. You're going to send the Israelites to Samaria, to Assyria. You're going to send the southern kingdom to Babylon. They'll be way over there. Oh. But they're coming back. And tonight when you read Ezra and Nehemiah, don't throw those books away. Oh, they're just history books. Oh, no, they're more than that. They're telling us, you know what happened? They came back. Why did they have to come back? Because the only place God could bless them was in Palestine. Listen to me carefully. There's only one place God can ever bless you, and that's in the place He chooses. And the place He chooses tonight, as I talk to you, and anybody else that's listening, is in Christ. You cannot be blessed when you're not in the place where God's going to bless you. And that's what that's all about back there. Why are we reading all that history? Why they came home. Why did they have to come home? Where was He going to bring the Messiah? Down there in Palestine. They've got to come home. And when I read Ezra and Nehemiah, my skin's tingling right now. I get all excited about that. Wow! He did what He said He would do. Wait a minute, God, how did you do that? You used Assyria and Babylon, and then you used Persia, and you sent them home, and then the Greeks came, and the Romans, and here comes the Lord. How did you do that? I don't know. But God did it. He controlled history in such a way, by His providential power, that the Messiah came exactly, and in the place, exactly, where God said He would. What kind of a God do we serve? He has showed the old man. I don't know about Mark's illustration about if I punch him in the nose, I'll get $100. So I asked him afterwards, I hit you, you'll give me $100. But he has a good point there. All of our sins, and yet He offered us a gift. And in Micah, He will tell them, He's going to bring you home. But you're going to have to suffer first. Say that out loud.
He delights in mercy.
He's going to show them mercy. And don't we know that? All we have to do is look at Calvary, do we not? And think about God. In Micah 4, we have a clear prophecy of the Church of Christ. Verses 1 through 3. In fact, there are 5 prophecies in this book about the coming Messiah. His birthplace, His kingship, His restorative powers, and His mercy. And through all of this history, Micah stands on a mountaintop between the old Israel and the new one. And I'm comforted by the fact of verse 20 of the last chapter. When it's all over, Micah said, then thou wilt perform the truth to Jacob, and watch this, and the mercy to Abraham, which thou hast sworn unto our fathers from the days of old. I did all of this to keep my promise to Abraham. Before faith came, we were kept under the law. Shut up under the faith. The word faith there means the gospel system. Before the gospel system came, we were shut up under the law, shut up under the faith, which after we therefore, the law was our schoolmaster to bring us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith, the gospel system. Where is that gospel system? Do you not know that so many of us, as we're baptized into Christ, have put on Christ? That's the place of blessing. God has shown us. He's not so hard we can't do it. He's told us exactly how to do it, how to live with Him one day. He's about to ring that bell. And so I'll ask now so I don't have to answer them. Are there any questions? Ring it.